is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being with us on UBC TV. Welcome back from Sports Update, and of course, just to let you know that we are always here from 6:30 with Good Morning Uganda. I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono, and this cold Monday, well, if you're in the 5 divisions of Kampala, you know what I'm talking about. And I want to believe also in other parts of the country, it is raining, and of course, this means so much to the traders, to the farmers, because those that deal in agro-produce. Now you have very soon that what has been scarce, you will have it in plenty. And of course, for people whose gardens are supermarkets and markets, also maybe the cost of food will go a little bit down, because we know our farmers depend on rainfall-fed agriculture. Now soon all are in the gardens planting. And what will happen? We shall have bulk harvest, and supply and demand, you know what that means. Therefore, if you have plenty, price sometimes goes down. Well, I don't want to say much about trade, because the topic I'm going to be discussing this morning, we are looking at the National Trade Review Conference on the theme, how trade and industry will propel Uganda to the $500 billion economy by 2040. We are not very far to 2040. How will our economy be at that? It seems very far-fetched, but well, I have competent people to explain this and more. Now, join me, welcome my guests. I have Elizabeth Arakiguri, who happens to be the Principal Commercial Officer, Ministry of Trade, Industries and Cooperatives. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
And the other side, I have Kilepas Ndorere, who is the Commissioner, External Trade, Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. Commissioner, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Robert, for having us this morning, and good morning, viewers.
Now, they are from the Ministry of Trade. Now, for someone who's just watching us, and of course you have a couple number of ministries, Commissioner, what is the mandate of this ministry that combines 3?
Thank you, Robert, once again. My name's Cleopas Ndorere from the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. I'm the Commissioner responsible for external trade. As you have rightly said, the ministry is Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. And those who put it together did it in purpose, because trade drives industrialization and then drives also cooperatives, because any industrialist or manufacturer or processor for that matter, the ultimate end or the ultimate objective is to put their products on the market, or agriculturist or whoever, the ultimate end is to put their products on the market. So in the ministry, we do trade. We have got both domestic and external trade. The domestic trade is to build our capacity to compete with imported products, and also as a nursery, as a springboard for producing goods that we can export. And then the export trade, external trade, deals with the exports, growth of exports, negotiating the markets out there, which involves trade liberalization, tariff liberalization, rules of origin, agreeing on how do we give preference to those products, and how do you determine that those products are indeed produced in the country, negotiating on standards and certification, remove of non-tariff barriers, because as you liberalize, countries never completely lose their sense of protectionism. They tend to now try to protect their domestic industries or their economies against imported products by increasing the non-tariff barriers. So our job is to every day look at that landscape and ensure that the NTBs or the non-tariff barriers are eliminated and addressed. We do have industry, as I said. We support the policies so that people can add more value and export and trade in manufactured products. And then we have cooperatives. department which deals with the registration and capacity building in the cooperative movement.
Now, when we talk about the 500 billion US dollar economy, and I want to put it to the lady on the team this morning, why is the Ministry of Trade, Industries and Cooperative central at this?
Okay, thank you so much, Robert. Once again, thank you for having us onto this show, and good morning to Uganda. Surely the Ministry of Trade, as it sounds, Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, into the 500 billion economy, tenfold growth becomes so essential because two key things here, trade and industry. For every economy to succeed, there must be something that it trades. And in this case, the question is, what kind of product are you trading? So if you are going to create wealth and get a better return, then whatever you send across your borders has to speak to the magnitude of what you want in return. So in this regard, the industry aspect comes in, like the Commission has indicated, value addition. So the more you add value to a product, when you trade it out, you get better returns. And that is why the ministry comes in central in ensuring that we have this move from the $50 billion economy to the $500 billion. And one thing we should also take into consideration, Robert, is that if we continue on the status quo of sending out products that don't meet a certain premium in the market, then we should say bye-bye to the dream of a $500 billion economy. But Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives comes in bold to say, no, Uganda has the potential to take the products from the raw stage into a stage that the region admires and the world at large, the global market admires. And I know that we can do it. So when trade comes in to speak, yes, we say we are going to access the markets, and we have got the markets, we have negotiated the markets. But then it's incumbent upon every farmer, every manufacturer, every exporter to ensure that the product that you're going to take across the boundaries of Uganda carry on a certain value. And Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives comes in central in this role, and hence our role in the $500 billion economy. Yeah.
Now, Commissioner, Uganda is a member to a number of trade blocs. How are we performing?
Robert, Uganda actually is at the vanguard, I would use that word, of regional integration. We are, as you know, the pioneers of the EAC even before it collapsed, and even at its revival. At the EAC, we are still at the we are as far as a common market which introduces what they call the 4 freedoms and the 2 rights. The 4 freedoms in the freedom for movement of services, movement of capital, movement of goods, movement of labor, and the 2 rights, the right of establishment and the right of residence. And in this, we have got a positive trade balance with the EAC. In the EAC, we have got a positive trade balance. In the trade services, we have negotiated under the common market and signed what we call mutual recognition agreements to allow our accountants, our engineers, our architects, and other professionals to cross and establish and do business in the EAC. At COMESA, we have we're in the COMESA FTA, and we have a huge, much of our goods are going to COMESA. Actually, 75% of our exports end up in the region, because this involves tariff liberalization, as you know. But again, the elephant in the room is the non-tariff barriers. As I told you, every time you remove tariffs, countries devise new means of trying to protect their industries. Because
Commissioner, for the benefit of my viewer, when you talk about tariffs, please clarify more. What are non-tariff barriers? What are these tariffs? You know, these may be common terms to us, but to someone viewing.
Okay, tariffs are what they call before the border duties, which you charge on imports. I'll give you an example of the common external tariff in the EAC, common external tariff. That means that if you are in a customs union, you agree within that customs union that you will be charging a common tariff for all the products. For instance, in the EAC, we now charge 0 for raw materials, 10 for raw materials and capital goods, 10 for semi-processed goods, and the 25 for finished products, and then 35 for goods of interest, sensitive. And then we have what they call sensitive items, those which are really very, for instance, sugar, where we know we have a big competitive advantage, sugar, maize, corn, and some bits of textiles. So those are what the tariffs, they differ from the domestic taxes like VAT and income tax. So the non-tariff barriers mean, for instance, they are not tariffs per se, but they create, they impede trade. And if you look, for instance, these police roadblocks, weigh bridges, where you find cars, trucks are all lined up trying to go for weighing, and arbitrary inspections, things like that. And sometimes when you speak to traders or exporters, you will find that they tell you that because of the unpredictability of the nature of non-tariff barriers, you can't know what cost it will be. They say, we would rather have tariffs, which we can predict. I know if I bring my product to Uganda, I'm going to pay, so to EAC, I'm going to pay 25%. That's predictable. Unlike a non-tariff barrier, as I said, if the arbitrary inspections along the way, you may spend, instead of spending 3 days to go to Mombasa, you spend a week. So it's difficult to cost them. So those are what we call the non-tariff barriers, which tend to impede trade. And in the ministry, we have got an online mechanism where we can identify them and monitor them. And there's also a national non-tariff barrier monitoring committee, both at the regional level and at the national levels in the partner states. And they meet regularly to review the NTBs, the non-tariff barriers, so that they can eliminate them either bilaterally or together at the EAC.
Now that said, the National Development Plan 4 is anchored on sustainable industrialization. Now, when we talk about this, what is the Ministry of Trade, Industries and Cooperatives doing to have this as a reality? Our lady on set.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll just put it at this. I like the aspect that it speaks to sustainable, because even if you do move into the industrial cycle without a sustainable angle to it, then at the end of the day, it becomes something that stays on paper as opposed to impacting the lives of Ugandans. The ministry, first of all, key to note is that we have an active industrial policy, which actually equally speaks to the trade policy. The two of them work hand in hand, trade and industry. But to ensure that our industrialization meets the 500 billion target, and as enshrined equally in the National National Development Plan, the Ministry of Trade at the moment is, through its various agencies, as well as the ministry itself, has taken a keynote into the industrial parks across the country, setting up special economic zones. And all these are aimed at the end of the day, ensuring that we add value to our products. Because as you have mentioned, the essence of industrialization is add value to the products, create jobs for the Ugandans. And at the end of the day, you have these jobs created and value added, and what happens is more money in our pockets, and that is what we're all looking up to. So in this regard, through our industrial policy, industrialization policy, as well as work across the different agencies in the country, we move to ensure that every sector of the economy, and also our most predominant, which is agriculture, goes into a section of value addition. So we have the agro-processing sections into it. So we have the ministry taking keen interest in ensuring that we reach out to mainly the small business players to ensure that their products, first of all, meet the respective value, meet the required standards, because if you're going into industry, then there are certain standards you have to meet. And so with that in mind, we look into an aspect of how effective is the production at the industry level. And we do not just stop at doing policy. We are taking keynote into training the small players, because there are very many of them out there who have an idea, but they do not know how to translate this idea into something that meets the market standards. They do not know how to translate this idea from their heads. Probably you have this, you don't have this beautiful idea and you're thinking so strongly about it, you see it move into the world, but you do not know how to bring it forth, to go through the different levels of value addition, through the different areas of industry, and hence the ministry comes in to say, let us help these small players, let us support the process, let us train them into the industry value chains, let us connect them into the regions, because at the end of the day, you also note that industrialization in the country is no longer a boundary issue. You have to translate it into the regions. So we work across the various regional bodies, for example, the East African Community, COMESA, Common Market for East and Southern Africa. And now that we're going into the continent, we're actually into the continent already, we have to ensure that these players walk into the entire regional value chain. They feed into the value chain. And all that plays down into industry. Because at the end of the day, as you note, one of the key indicators is to move from the level of manufactured goods, which also speaks to industry, in the export sector, translate that from the small figure, I think it's currently at about 9%, Commissioner? Yes, about, yes, 9%. And we're looking at that moving to 50%. That translates by 2040. So if you have to carry that chain, then you see industry coming in. And what does it stand? The ministry, like has been indicated, has that aspect of industry, Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Cooperatives. So we don't do this in isolation. Now, with the government program of having this holistic approach, we work with all the various players within the value addition section that speak to industry. Ministry of Agriculture comes into the picture, Science and Technology comes into the picture. Because if you say that trade, we are going to just sit and do the policy, at the end of the day, nothing will happen because that stays on paper. But when you work as institutions, you translate this from the policy that is on paper, and then with the various institutions that actually go ahead probably to, like, for example, Uganda National Bureau of Standards, to speak into the standards, and then that feeds into industry. At the end of the day, we are looking forward to ensuring that that 50% really speaks into a $500 billion economy. And by that, just to say, Robert, I'm really confident. I have worked in the ministry for 15 years, though my commissioner is far bigger than I am that. But for the 15 years that I have been there, I see there's a lot of potential that the ministry has to translate what we have on paper on the NDP4 as well as a $500 billion economy into something that Ugandans will smile at and say, yes, we have reached our objective.
Now, in your submission, you talked about the trainings. When, where are they free? How do you identify people who qualify or who need this training? Because I see Uganda has a big population in the informal sector.
Yeah.
And these are people that just need a little, if I use the word, panel beating.
Yes.
You know, they will be there, but you find them there. Go to Katwe, go to Kisenyi. You know, some are very good at innovation. Person looks at something and in a few hours they can give you that. You see, they have potential, but they lack knowledge, they lack connections. Yeah. So as the ministry then, how do you come in here?
Okay, yes, thank you so much. Now, ministry, like I said, we work a lot with our agencies. Now, I'll probably start with, for example, Uganda Free Zones and Export Promotion Authority. That is one of those key players that comes in to help a trader or a businessman translate that idea or that product into something that can be able to meet the requirements of an export market. So one of the questions you asked is it free? Yes, it is. It's usually free. True. How do we identify all these players? Now, one of the things across the country is that we have district commercial officers, and we work with the district commercial officers. For example, if you wanted to reach Kabira Maido, I who sits on my desk will not know who in Kabira Maido needs a particular training. So working with the district commercial officers, we identify key players, key businessmen and women in a particular sector. For example, if you identify that we need to deal with the grain sector, so you reach the district commercial officer of Busia, and he knows his surrounding. So as the ministry, then we organize and say, probably this quarter or this year, we have to train on probably exports of grains. So through the district commercial officer, we identify these players and we give them hands-on skill. But also just to note, like I said, the trade policy or the industrial policy is not in isolation. So Minister of Trade will not say that since it is Minister of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, we're going to sit back and do the trading ourselves. Anything that is done, for example, the Skilling Uganda, Minister of Education, and all that still fits into the national trade policy or the industrial policy. So despite the fact that it's done by different institutions, when they organize, Minister of Trade is also part of that engagement because you have the expertise that is required. We have different players in the ministry, the SME department that has a lot of skill and all that. So when, for example, Skilling of Uganda organizes something, then they will look out and say, trade, yes, trade has a potential to give information in this. Export Promotion Board has this. Uganda National Bureau of Standards has this to come and give the skills across to the different Ugandans. So basically Ugandans, and it's free of charge. And anybody who can walk into our offices, at any particular time you ask for whatever information, it is always free and available because we're here to serve.
Well, at that, allow me to go for a very short break. I'll return.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Are you looking for a home away from home? Then this is the place for you. My name is Chini Kaji, and welcome to Hotel Le Confidential.
With 84 comfortable rooms where you can relax and feel safe. Each room has a lovely view of green vegetation, Wi-Fi, air conditioning, and a tasty breakfast.
Children can have fun at our kids' water park and our kids' play area. You can also enjoy our world-class health club, spa, sauna, gym, boutique, and sky blue swimming pool.
Thank you for choosing Hotel Le Confidential, where every stay is unforgettable. Come and stay in comfort, right at home, today, tomorrow, and always.
Exercise can't be sustained. Eating can't be stopped. It's even harder to lose weight. Come and give it a try. Ginshikang L-carnitine chromium capsules, plant extract, scientific ratio, take 3 capsules each time. The active ingredient accelerates fat burning, eat twice a day, don't take a detour. Weight loss starts now. Ginshikang L-carnitine with chromium capsules helps you stay in shape. Please follow medical advice when taking this product. For more information, visit our website www.hgo.com or call 0800 335555.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that break, and thank you for keeping it with us on UBC TV. Now I'll go to the National Trade Review Conference. Why is it important and why is it being held at this time? Commissioner.
Thank you, Robert, once again. There is a saying that what you cannot measure, you cannot act on it. So we've been doing all this, as we've told you, the policies, the strategies, and all that, the regulations. So we need to come into the room with all the stakeholders. Government adopted what they call the program sector working groups. We no longer now work in silos. We used to work in silos, to be honest. We now look at the program because of the nature of the cross-cutting aspect of trade. For you to trade, for instance, there's electricity, there's infrastructure, logistics, transport, and all that. All those are players in the room. So we are going to invite those players in the room, from the ministries, from the private sector, academia, civil society, development partners, and all that, so that once we come into one room, we look at our performance. We have grown our exports, yes, 36% growth to 13.6 exports, billion dollars. That's not small. But our deficit is still 5.12 there. So how do we close our deficit? How do we introduce more products, import replacement, or what you usually call import substitution, but sometimes I prefer to say import replacement. I don't want it to look like a policy reversal, you know. So when they come into the room, we are going to have that discussion. We're going to have a discussion on what do we do? The global economy is fragmenting. The multilateral system, everyone knows what America is doing now, throwing tariffs left and right, throwing people out of preferential schemes. What do we do? What strategies do we devise to build resilience? We know, for instance, that EU has placed new regulations on deforestation, sustainability issues, on the corporate social, on corporate sustainability and due diligence directive. New issues are coming into the trade arena: human rights, discrimination issues, child labor, things like that. So what do we do to come together and talk with all those stakeholders so that we are not left behind? We are supposed during this conference to launch our revised policy. We have a new policy which we have revised to meet the emerging trends and to align it with the realities today. But due to lengthy approvals, we will not be doing that during this conference, but we will soon do it. I hope you will invite us back here to talk about it. We have a new national export development strategy, a precursor to, it is following the one which expired in 2024. It is a new strategy that is talking about all the interventions that we want to do to grow our exports, and has all the responsibilities, as Rita said. Who are the players and what do they need to do? We are also going to launch the online permitting. You know, as a ministry, we issue out permits, especially in external trade, in hawkers, moving wholesalers and all that. So we want to launch that system also, so that we remove the physical interaction between you just go on the system, click, you send your documentation, and then we get you your permit, we upload it onto the national electronic single window, and there you are good to go, just in your sitting room or in your office. So those are the discussions we're going to have on NTBs. How do we address non-tariff barriers, which I earlier talked about. And I want to, on this, Robert, to thank our development partners, Trademark Africa. We're going to be doing this trade review with Trademark Africa, with the support of Trademark Africa and our UK development partners. And this is going to happen on the 4th and 5th. This is Wednesday and Thursday. We have an online registration. So many people have registered. We are in the final process of vetting the real people want in the room. We would love to have everyone in the room, but resources cannot allow us. You know that. You can't have everyone in the room. But we will be having live streaming so that those who will not be able to sit in Munyonyo physically can access it on live streaming and be part of this discussion as we work towards using trade and industry to propel our economy to the 500 billion GDP by 2040, which I believe is doable, and the statistics talk for themselves, how fast we are moving. The statistics talk for themselves, so it's not a pipeline, a hollow dream. It is a dream that is realistic, and I want to assure Ugandans listening to us this morning that at Trade we have the capacity. All we need is you, every one of you, to come on board, give us the support, give us the resources, and you will see what can come out of trade and industry cooperatives and our SME departments to build and this economy and put money in our people's pockets.
Well, so much hope for Ugandans, and we hope this comes into reality. My guests are saying statistics are very positive. All we need is your input as a Ugandan. Now, Elizabeth, please re-echo on the venue and the dates. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much once again. Yes, like said, 4th to 5th of March 2026 at Speak Resort Munyonyo. But not all of us can fit into Speak Resort Munyonyo. And even if, by the way, we had enough funds, 56 million Ugandans cannot all sit in Munyonyo. Because by the every Ugandan is key to this process. But thank God for the online. So like my commissioner has said, we have the online presence. So please log in. And I believe all over the social media, the links are moving on. Inform your mother in the village, everybody, the grandmother in the village, the trader, that
How is the
person out there.
grandmother in the village relevant to this conference? Where we are going to see technocrats, where we are going to see the commissioner, commercial officers. If I'm invited and I'm vetted as being there, so... You know, Ugandans have had a number of conferences, international and domestic ones. And sometimes when you're discussing things that directly affect them, or I want them to be part of, they have a feeling it's not their thing. You know, why would a Ugandan watching us today be eager to follow the proceedings of this trade review conference? Why?
Robert, I like what you started with, why the grandmother? Because trade is not just about the statistics. Trade is every Ugandan. Because whatever is going to be discussed in this room affects every Ugandan. So, like you said, some people are going to say, no, that's a technocrat who need to sit in the room. But what is discussed in the room is not about the technocrats. It's about Mama Nakato, Tata, Sarafina, because at the end of the day, Uganda is not just a borderland. Uganda are the people in Uganda, and that's what makes Uganda. So we have to have ownership of the process. And Munyonyo is giving us this opportunity. The 4th and the 5th is giving us an opportunity as a Ugandan to say, I own the process, and I own what comes out of it. So that when we are celebrating the 500 billion win, you'll not say it's the technocrats who did it. You'll even say that, I was in my living room when they were speaking and probably made a call to say, no, change this. Or I made this decision through my district commercial officer. So every Ugandan is important. And remember, trade is not just about the papers. Trade is Uganda. And every Ugandan makes a difference in trade.
Okay, trade is for every Ugandan, and every Ugandan makes a difference. Now, that is the reason, Commissioner, is this going to be interactive, even for the people who may not be physically present?
Yes, we intend to make it as interactive as possible, because we don't want to speak to ourselves. We don't want to sit and start churning off statistics, churning off policies and all that. We don't want to speak to ourselves. We actually even expect the Secretary General of African Continental Free Trade Area to chip in and give a keynote address, a virtual one. And we expect also people to send in their questions online so that the panelists, the discussants, and all that can talk about them. We have a report of the 2025 review which we made, and people will gauge us based on that report to see how far have we gone, what are the promises we made, and how far have we implemented those promises. So it's indeed going to be interactive so that everyone feels engaged and feels that they have participated in this dialogue.
Very interesting. I love the fact that it will be very interactive. So position yourself. You could be having a number of questions that we've not addressed today. But what we are looking at is ensuring that trade and industry can propel Uganda to the 500 billion US dollar economy by 2040. Not very far from now. The question is how we get there. Well, my guests today have tried to do justice, to explain, and they're very optimistic that with statistics and efforts put across, we can get there by 2040. Now I'll just give each 2 minutes or 3 for their closing remarks, and I'll begin with Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you so much, Robert. It's actually, I did call this a privilege to speak to every Ugandan here today. Just closing up for this is to know that trade and industry are the engines that will take us where we want to go. But the question is, like said, what kind of trade are we sending out there? For every man or woman that I have known, or that we read about in our various studies and all that, or the countries that we see that have seemed to go very far, the product that they send out speaks a lot of innovation. So every Ugandan out there, I'd call on each of us. Our brains have the ability to take Uganda where we want Uganda to go, because within each of us is a potential. And in the various sectors, those who are into the agriculture sector, those who are in the services sector, whatever sector that you stand in, let us work together to ensure that Uganda is the country that we want it to be. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives has given us, through the different policies, specifically the trade policy and the industrial policy, the ability to do this. Because the environment is conducive, the environment is favorable for us to speak not only to the domestic market, but to speak into the region and into the global market. So I'd like to call on every farmer, every student, every businessman, whatever role that you play in, whatever you trade, add value to that. Because the more value you add to that, the more the incomes come into our pockets, the more our children go to school, the more we're able to take care of ourselves, and the more Uganda is able to get into that economy that we have always longed for. Thank you so much, and I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Trade Review. And thank you so much, Robert, too, for having me on the show.
Well, add value is to take home from Elizabeth. Whatever you're doing with the producers there, this from garden to market is something you should think of. How do we add value? And when you go to export, have enough information. What standards must you have for you to sell these things at this international market? Yes, Commissioner, as we move out of here.
Thank you, Robert. As we move out of here, I want to call upon all Ugandans to add my voice to Elizabeth's, to come and be part of this discussion. There is no economy in the world that has developed without backing itself or underpinned by trade. As His Excellency always says, there must be a producer and a consumer. We have built the markets, we have negotiated them, the FTA, FCTA, 1.4 billion people, 3.4 trillion US dollar GDP, COMESA, EAC, we are doing bilaterals, we intend to do comprehensive economic partnerships with the EU and other countries. So the market is there, and that makes trade possible. But we now must move from only possibilities to make trade happen. And how does it happen? Again, as we said, to get the people producing, because government does not trade, it is the private sector. They need to produce more, the products that meet the required standards. They need to be honest. Especially, let me speak specifically to exporters. We have had areas where people, for instance, have exported sim. You find 5 containers, one of the containers or 2 is full of dust, sand. Those kind of things spoil the name of the country and you get yourself blacklisted. So let's be honest, we will make baby steps, but we will reach there. You're better off being honest so that you don't have those interceptions of poor quality, and then when you are blacklisted, and remember you are competing now globally, and you find that you cannot access those markets. So I call upon all Ugandans, young and old, women, youth, children, to embrace this so that we do this, we build trade and industry as our flagship to drive and propel our economy to where we want it to be in 2040. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, my guest this morning, and above all, my viewer. Thank you very much for having had time with us. More programming continues with UBC TV. Keep it with us. See you tomorrow. God bless you.